They say being tall has its perks, but here's why it sucks to be a giraffe. Have you ever tried drinking water when your straw was just a little too short? You bend down, then bring your lips up to the top of the cup. But no matter how hard you try, there's just not enough length to get the liquid moving. For giraffes, this happens every time they want to take a drink. But instead of cups, it's water holes. And instead of straws, it's their super long tongues. They can curl those suckers up into a U shape and flick them out to slurp up water. But the physics of all that skin and muscle slapping against a big vein makes a loud, obnoxious noise. That means every drink is prefaced by an awkward silence followed by bonk, splat. But what does it sound like if you drink through your nose? If you think about it, that's exactly what a giraffe is doing. So try this. Sniff up some air and then smack your lips together really fast. Bonk, splat. Now imagine having to do that every single time you wanted to take a sip of water. No wonder giraffes are always so thirsty. If you ask any parent, giving birth is one of the most painful things ever. But at least for humans, the baby comes out the easy way. Not so for giraffes. When a baby giraffe is born, it drops 6 feet out of the ground. Just imagine the impact if a human baby came shooting out of the birthing canal and landed on the floor 6 feet away. If we were born that way, hospitals would be adding trampolines to the maternity ward. As it is, the baby giraffe is pretty much on its own after that first tumble. Sure, mom might lend a hand or a hoof, but the rest of the time the baby is figuring it out for itself. And since their limbs are disproportionately tiny, it's hard for them to figure out where they end and everything else begins. Newborn giraffes spend a lot of time trying to find their feet. Being tall isn't all it's cracked up to be. Take blood circulation, for example. Giraffes have super long necks, which means they need a powerful pump to move blood through their bodies. In fact, their hearts are 60% bigger than those of other mammals. But even that's not enough to overcome the effects of gravity. Giraffes literally have to work harder to pump blood to the top of their heads. The solution? Lots of blood vessels and a special valve to keep the blood from pooling in their brains. That valve keeps the blood flowing in one direction, and it's made of smooth muscle cells. When those cells contract, they widen the blood vessel, letting more blood through. When they relax, the blood vessel narrows. That helps push the blood along. But those muscles can get tired. And if they do, the blood flow can get backed up. And what happens then? Well, let's go back to the human body for some perspective. Say you were holding a hose up over your head. If you got tired and let the hose sag a bit, water would pool at the end. Same thing happens with the giraffes. Except instead of water, it's blood. And instead of a hose, it's the veins. The result, brain damage. Those poor guys can suffer strokes and brain hemorrhages because their blood flow gets cut off. Even if the blood starts pumping again, the damage is done. Even worse, sometimes the blood flow gets cut off in the opposite direction. If the valves in a giraffe's blood vessels don't close properly, blood can flow backward. And what happens then? Well, picture squeezing a toothpaste tube, but instead of toothpaste, it's blood. And instead of a tube, it's the human heart. When this happens to a giraffe, their blood pressure skyrockets, their hearts explode, and they drop dead. The term stuck between a rock and a hard place describes a situation with no good options. Like if you were trapped in a cave and the only way out was through a hole in the ceiling that you could end. Teeth fit through. But if you're a giraffe, you're stuck between the predators, an eagle on your back and a hyena underneath you. Let's take a look at their anatomy to see why. Eagles have strong legs and sharp talons that make it easy for them to grab prey. But it takes the strong legs to capture an adult giraffe. So eagles attack the young ones. Baby giraffes can't defend themselves, and they're easier to carry away, unless, of course, they fall down a ravine and break their legs. Tough luck, eh? Meanwhile, the adult giraffes have a secret weapon, their horns. They're tough enough to gore an eagle to death. So the birds save their attacks for when the coast is clear. Hyenas, on the other hand, don't have horns to worry about. They can sneak up on a baby giraffe without getting gored. But they can't run it over to catch it. Baby giraffes can run before they can walk. They start taking steps at 1 month old, but they're running away from danger at 3 months old. And a full-grown giraffe is too tall and too fast for a hyena to chase down. So they pick off the weak members of the herd. Usually that's the elderly or sick, but sometimes it's babies who fell and broke their legs. You know, the ones that couldn't run away. So yeah, a giraffe's anatomy makes them a giant target, especially when they're a helpless baby. But you know what else sucks about being a giraffe? Trying to go to sleep. Humans can lie on their sides when we sleep. That's nice. But giraffes can't. When they try to roll over, their long bodies get tangled up and they can't get comfortable. If they lay flat, their breathing will stop. So they have to stay standing. But that means their legs ache from standing all day. Plus, they get leg cramps. Any human who's ever had a Charlie horse knows those aren't fun. But imagine being 19 feet tall and having one in your calf. If you can't bend down to sit or lay down and you can't get comfortable wherever you are, sleep becomes a luxury. Being a giraffe is rough, but these super tall animals have adapted to survive. In fact, they've evolved so well, scientists don't think there are any major disadvantage to being a giraffe. But we beg to differ. They may be well adapted, but being a giraffe blows. These animals would probably be happier if they were a little shorter. Of course, if giraffes got their way, they'd be able to squeeze through those narrow hallways and use those extra long necks to reach the best snacks. But we won't let them do that. Why? Because we've made an anti-giraffe device. Actually, we made a bunch of them. We'll put a couple on our fingers so we can watch them all on our phones. Oh boy, that looks embarrassing.